Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I am thrilled today on a Monday morning to bring to you Tim Baldwin from Front Street Brewery. Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Hey, good, Jeff. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you very much. And we're just excited that you're up early up over there in Idaho to talk to us. Iowa. Where did I get Idaho from? I got my eyes right, but
hey, I wouldn't mind being in Idaho. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful part of the country. But we're in the middle of the cornfields out here in Iowa.
Well, as is Iowa, though. That's a beautiful place for any of us who, to have an opportunity to see those sites. But I digress, and I apologize for that. But Front Street Brewery in Iowa, we've got Tim with us this morning, and we're thrilled to have you, and just kind of looking forward to learning more about Front Street Brewery, and hoping maybe you could start us off by sharing your story, your experience, and kind of building this business.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Tim.
Sure. So, I'm not the guy that started this business, but young couple started this in 1992. Steve and Jenny, and Steve was an engineer, Jenny a homemaker, and Steve had this dream of getting in the beer business. So he kind of tossed his career aside, and they built this brewery. It was the oldest brew pub license in the state of Iowa. The only older license in the state is Millstream Brewery, and they had an actual brewery license. So we were the brew pub, they were the brewery. Millstream, I believe, was around 1986, and Front Street in 1992. So Steve and Jenny opened this little pub and eatery up, and Steve would brew beer in the wee hours before the restaurant was open. He had quite the contraptions to get his equipment and product down into the basement level of this building where he did the brewing. We still have remnants of the old crane that he used, and he used to remove sections of the floor to haul materials and grain downstairs. The basement was full of tanks, brewing equipment, and so forth. And they were a traditional brew pub. They brewed beer on site. They poured the beer on site. They poured it right out of the tanks. And that's what they did for the longest time. Unfortunately, that location, which we still operate today as our pub and eatery, is located on what used to be known as Front Street in downtown Davenport, Iowa. As many river towns have front streets along the river, and we're on the banks of the Mississippi River. And if you know anything about the Midwest and the Mississippi, you know that it floods often, and we have not been able to escape that here. So. Opened in 1992, I think late 1992, and in July of 1993, there was a devastating flood in downtown Davenport, and the building succumbed to the flood waters after days of battling the flood. Customers, friends, neighbors, everyone was down here, manning sandbags and pumps, and they were doing everything they could to keep the river out. And finally, it just succumbed to the waters, and the place was destroyed. So Steve and Jenny, who had basically walked away from jobs, poured their life savings into this business, were devastated and almost bankrupted them. They brought some investors in, helped them recover, and they opened the place back up, and they've been going strong ever since. And as a tribute and a thank you to all those that helped attempt to save the business from the flood, Steve brewed a beer. It's a West Coast style IPA, single hop IPA that he named Raging River. And it's become one of our flagship beers, still on tap today, 30 years later. Wow. And it's, again, it was a tribute to those that helped try to keep them from succumbing to the flood. So they operated that business, lived through a couple more floods, nothing as devastating as the first. And in 2012, it just things got too busy. It was very cumbersome trying to do the work the way they did it for all those years in the basement. So Steve decided to move just 4 blocks west of our location here, also still on the river, to a city-owned facility called the Freight House, and it is what it sounds like. It's an old rail freight house. So in 2012, Steve decided to relocate the brewery to the Freight House in downtown Davenport, also on the river, and set about designing his own brewery system. And he had taken his designs to a couple local contractors, and no one was really able to produce what he had envisioned until he stumbled across a company called Crawford Company. Crawford they were a large industrial HVAC company, so they had a lot of experience with bending metal and round metal and all those kind of things. And in Steve's mind, he thought, well, heck, these guys ought to be able to just make bigger round pieces of metal. So he met with Crawford, and sure enough, they were able to help him develop the brew house that he had envisioned. And so he deployed that system. It's a standard 3-tank system, and it is now the granddaddy, the prototype to all of the systems that Crawford Brewworks now makes. That company saw the opportunity, and with Steve's help, launched a new division called Crawford Brewworks. And today they build brew systems, very top of the line brew systems that are sold around the country, and I think in fact worldwide, with Steve's help. And I think Steve continues to consult with them on those systems in his retirement days. So Crawford themselves actually opened up a small brewery here in town. They used to use our facility as the place where they'd bring their customers in to demonstrate their system. But over the years, they've improved on the system, and everything's all digital. Ours is a manual steam gauge system, we'll call it, and my brewers prefer to use that rather than the all digital systems. So they built their own brewery to highlight their equipment. So we got a great relationship with them. It's great that Steve was able to help them launch that business. And I'm told it's around 15% of their business now is building these breweries, and they're a big company. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool part of the story, because taking his expertise and launching a whole new business basically for Crawford. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you bet. So my business partner and I, of course, all this has taken place long before we had any interest in brewing business. And I really, and let's see, I meant to back up and say that Front Street was the oldest brew pub license in the state of Iowa. At that time, Front Street was also the 300th craft brewery in the United States. That list has grown today. I think we're over 10,000 now. Heck, we're over 100 just in the state of Iowa. So, we go back a long way. And those beers that Steve brewed have been being brewed that entire time we've been in business. So one thing that Steve never did was distribute any of his product. So he brewed it. He poured it now at the new location, the brewery and taproom location. He had removed all the brewing equipment from the pub and eatery location so his wife could expand the restaurant operations. And then he sent the beer via distribution down to the restaurant, but never did he distribute his beer to others. He also was a bit of a purist. He's a real brewer's brewer. And his wife would bug him all the time to do things that were a little bit more drinkable for your average restaurant goer. So things like a cherry ale or something along those lines, which Steve absolutely hated putting his name on, but they sold well in the restaurant. So his wife was always on him about that. But anyhow, they kept going along like that for a while, and somewhere around 2014, a couple years after Steve opened up at the Freight House location, a couple of guys approached myself and my business partner. I'm a real estate developer. I'm also, I've got a passion for old buildings. I've done several rehabs of some recognizable historic buildings in the Davenport area. And a realtor friend brought these two guys to us who were looking to start a new brewery in Davenport. And they came to us, or he brought them to us because we have these connections to these old buildings, and they were looking for some lofty kind of old brick buildings that they could use to build this brewery out. And we kind of racked our brain and really didn't come up with anything other than our office building, which I'm talking to you from right now, which happens to be a historic 3-story building right next door to the Front Street Pub and Eatery. And we had a first floor space that we had gutted and we made a really cool brewery. But we had developed this relationship with Steve and Jenny. We were right next door, so we eat lunch there often. And we just felt like we needed to talk to them before we put a new brewery in right next door to them. So had that conversation with Steve, and he said, it's more, yeah, absolutely, the more the merrier. He said, hey, we'll all just be busier if we have more breweries down here. So, okay. So started down this path. Again, I knew nothing about the beer business. My partner and I knew nothing about the beer business. We weren't even craft beer drinkers, to be honest with you. And went on this kind of journey with these two young guys, and learned a lot about this business and a lot about the business side of the business. Of course, developed a passion for craft beer along the way. And when we got to the point of, just deciding to pull the trigger, we went back and talked to Steve and Jenny one last time, because one of the things we weren't going to do in this new brewery was have food. And given that we're literally 10 steps out our door to Front Street's restaurant, we wanted to have a conversation with them about some sort of a through wall agreement for food. And we sat down with them and had that conversation, and they said, why don't you just buy the restaurant and put it all under one roof and open your own brewery and have your own food, and we're just going to go up here and make beer at the Freight House. And we said, okay. So we headed down that path. And as we got closer to the day we were going to close, Steve Partners came in and basically wanted more money. And we said, well, that's not going to happen unless we take it all. And that, that's kind of history there. We ended up buying the entire business, brewery and all. So we never did open the new brewery. And again, after having learned a considerable amount about the business side of the brewing industry and the craft beer industry, I recognized the opportunity to distribute our products to the public, not just to our own pub. And so we closed in May of 2016. Really nothing changed other than the fact that we started developing relationships with distributors and started distributing some of the products that sold very well in the pub and eatery. One of them happened to be a cherry ale, which we branded Cherry Baldwin. And it has become an enormous success. It really blew our brewery up. Today we've got I think we have 4 or 5 beers that have their own brand wrapped around them and sell at retail at grocery stores and liquor stores. And of course, everything we produce, we keg and sell through bars. Cherry Baldwin has been a top seller in our market since it hit the market. Oftentimes, well, first of all, it's the #1 selling craft beer in the Quad City area, we call it, and has been since it hit the market. Oftentimes, it surpasses some of the big name beers that are sold into this market every so often. So it's carried by some 500 locations around our area here in this greater area of about 500,000. And it's just been an amazing hit. So we've expanded throughout Iowa and into Illinois. We have 3 primary distributors selling our product. Over half of our beer production, all of our canning, and over half of our total beer production is now done at Potosi Brewing Company in Potosi, Wisconsin. Potosi is the home to the National Craft Beer Museum. And they are a nonprofit organization whose only goal was to employ the town of Potosi and Tennyson by opening this brewery back up. It's run by a fantastic guy who's in the insurance business. And the coincidental thing is that Steve, in his early days before even opening Front Street, Steve actually, while he was working his job at the nuke plant as an engineer, Steve would drive to Potosi and brew for them. So he brewed Potosi beers very early on, and even continued to brew Potosi beers after Front Street was open. And so we've had this 30-year relationship with Potosi. We're now their number one customer. They've had to expand their operations several times. In fact, Wednesday, I'm going up there to see the new canning line and new tanks and the new filtration system and everything they've put in to support our beer production. I'd say Potosi is brewing 2,000 to 3,000 barrels a year for us, which is more than half of our total production. The balance being done at our brewery and at the freight house. We tend to send the production beers up to Potosi that are heading out to distribution and retail, and we, our brewers, get to have fun and experiment and produce the IPAs and do all those types of things here locally that go out to our local bars.
I was about to ask you that question, so you preempted it perfectly, because I was curious as to what work went there versus what you kept in house. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, you know, for quite a while we used a mobile canner. We just don't have enough space at our operation here in Davenport. So for a long time we used a mobile canner who would come in and set up shop before we would open the tap room, and we would, you know, can 300 to 600 cases of beer and get him cleaned up and out of there before we open. Mm-hmm. And it worked. But, you know, Potosi's got the kind of operation that, you know, they can produce, you know, thousands of cases of beer a day and do it a lot more efficiently than we could. And a product that is better suited for the retail market, including, you know, filtration and pasteurization, which we didn't have the ability to do here locally. And with the volumes of Cherry Bomb Blonde that we've been selling, there was just no way for us to keep up. So that's kind of the nutshell story of how we got where we are. Again, I think the thing that makes us different than a lot of our friends in the brewery business, that's myself and my partner, you know, we were kind of the financial guys, the business side of things, and we looked at this really as a business play, and it's been a very successful one. There's great money to be made in the beer business if you do it right and smart. And I totally respect my peers in this business who have built these breweries out of their passion for brewing and beer. But it's a different model than ours. Not that our brewers aren't passionate. In fact, the two guys that approach us, one is no longer a partner, and the younger of the two is. You know, my partner and I are 50 plus, and our young partner's 27 years old, and he lives and breathes the brewery, and that's what he enjoys doing. And but you know, he gets to do what he loves, which is brew beer and get it out the door, and we get to do what we love, which is turn that into a business model that can generate profit. And I think that's really the difference in the approach that we take. I know everybody wants to be profitable. It's just that not everybody knows how to be. And I've been called a serial entrepreneur my entire life. I've owned bars and restaurants, grocery stores. I came out of the technology business during the dot-com boom. A real estate developer, and that's my primary business, which I've been doing for 20 plus years. You know, we own a gun shop, an indoor shooting range. You know, all sorts of things we're involved in, but we have the most fun with the beer business, that's for sure. We're very tied into our community here. We support everything that happens and goes on downtown. We usually, you know, sponsor beer and do all those types of things to make sure Front Street is front and center. And we have two fantastic locations that are always hopping. Our freight house location where the beer is brewed and our tap room is also happens to be the location for our farmers market, which runs from May through October. And on any given Saturday, you'll see 5,000 people down there.
Oh my gosh.
At 8 in the morning, we've got people standing in line at our front door waiting to get growlers filled. So it's just a really unique environment down here, and we've been blessed to have that opportunity to serve these customers and grow our business the way we have.
Well, that's really impressive. And from our first conversation, I wasn't aware of a couple of those businesses that you guys are operating. How do you break up your time and kind of apply yourself in all those different fronts?
Well, from a business perspective, there's 5 days in the week. So we literally break it down by the day. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, our Front Street crew will come in and it's for our Front Street day. We're at the pub and eatery every day. So again, we're steps out the door to the restaurant. So we're there every day. We have a good handle of what's going on. We've got some fantastic people working for us. General manager at each location who's responsible for drive it like you stole it, right? I mean,
right.
they get compensated to do to run it like their own business and grow it, and they do a fantastic job. Employees, of course, are a problem right now. People are experiencing that all over the country. Just trying to keep kitchen staff, for example, wait staff. That's been a huge challenge. But unlike many of the restaurants in downtown Davenport, we've managed to continue to stay open 7 days a week. Many of our peers down here, in fact, today, Monday, was when we bought Front Street, they were always closed on Monday. There just wasn't enough business. Well, we opened back up to 7 days a week, and now Monday has become almost as busy as a Friday for us because every other restaurant in downtown Davenport's closed. Generally, they're closed Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because they can't get the help. And somehow we've managed to keep the help and have managed to keep our doors open, and we've been rewarded by the business that follows. Fortunately, our brewing operations, we run a pretty skinny crew over there because we just only have so much capacity. We do have a small brew house that we're able to experiment on, and a 15-barrel brew house that we do our production runs on, at least here at our location. And so here's where we build new beers, come up with new ideas, and ultimately, if they become a production beer, we send that up to Potosi for the production runs.
That's pretty cool. And as you were talking, I was thinking a little bit. You mentioned you had GMs at each of your locations, and do they? I'm assuming they carry full profit and loss responsibility for the
absolutely
each establishment.
Yeah.
So
food costs, food costing, beer and booze costing, labor, they're responsible for everything. And our Tuesday meetings, we simply review that data, keep them guided in the right direction, provide them, advice and assistance wherever we can. I mean, we've also gone down to the brewery when we've had the mobile canner there and have pulled cans off the line and packed 4 packs and put them on the truck. I mean, we're hands on whatever it needs. If we happen to be in the restaurant and it's busy, and we don't have a host, someone jumps up and is seating customers or wiping down tables, jumping back in the kitchen to help when necessary. So we do whatever needs to be done to be successful. Same goes for other businesses. I mean, it's a matter of a day of the week. Again, putting good managers in place, paying them well, and we've got this philosophy that good people don't need to be managed. I don't like managing people. I don't like having employees. I kind of like having partners that we all have the same goal. And the way we look at it is, if you have to be managed, you're not the right person for us. I would rather people come in and be able to do whatever it takes to be successful, be compensated appropriately for it. And if they can do that in 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week, I really don't care, as long as we are doing what we need to do. Same goes with our, we call them beer ambassadors. This is such a strange business that your salespeople can't actually sell anything because it has to go through distribution. We can't actually take an order, so we call them beer ambassadors. And same thing, they have an objective, and as long as they're meeting those numbers, I don't care if they do it, in 1 day a week, and they go golf the rest of the week. It really doesn't matter. That all we're managing is the results, and that's what ultimately pays the bills.
Right. Well, I like that. And are you guys hiring that talent that already has? It sounds like you are hiring people who already have that capability and skill set, rather than hiring for the person and training them up. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that most everybody in those roles were folks that had some experience. For example, our general manager at our pub and eatery, she was a server when we bought the business, and we had hired a seasoned manager to come in, and because Steve's wife Jenny used to be the manager, and they left, they retired, so we needed to have somebody to replace her, and we hired a seasoned manager, and honestly, it failed miserably, and we went to Christy, who was a server, and she's a mom, husband's a police officer, she's a normal person, and she said, I can do this, and she did, and she's been doing it ever since, and she does a fantastic job. Our tap room manager, she was a sales rep for AT&T, and single gal, 50-ish, loves to loves to be around people, and we took a chance and we hired her, and she's almost she's doubled our business at the tap room.
Wow.
She books entertainment, and it's just a fun environment that people enjoy being in. It doesn't hurt that our location is I may be biased, obviously, but you could probably ask anybody, but there are things about this Quad City area that are kind of iconic, and when you see an image of it, you go, oh, that's the Quad Cities. And one is the Centennial Bridge. It's an old bridge that crosses the Mississippi. Another is our ballpark, originally John O'Donnell Stadium. Now it's called Modern Woodland Park, but if you look it up, it's the #1 minor league ballpark in the country. Those are literally right outside our door. So, and then of course the Mississippi River. So when you're sitting on the boardwalk outside of our brewery, you're seeing all those things that are iconic Quad Cities. So and then you got the river rolling by, you got trains, you have everything that is this area, and you can see it all from our boardwalk, and bike paths, bicycles and beer just go together for some reason, and we've got hordes of them. So it's a phenomenal location for that, and again, we're the only guys down there, and we would never leave for those reasons.
Yeah, Davenport, Iowa, man. It sounds majestic, and really, really nice to. I love anything that has a pier, a beer, and water.
There you go. Yeah.
What else could you want?
It is tough to beat that,
Yeah.
And this area has been through hell over the years. I failed to mention, by the way, that in 2019, what is that now? 3 years ago, we had another devastating flood, and we bought the office building we're sitting in 2014, and the city had gotten very good at building flood protection. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you ever heard of a HESCO barrier, but it's what the military uses when they build walls around compounds, in the Middle East. They're great big wire baskets that have a liner, and they fill them with sand, and they'll stack them tall and wide, and so they're pretty stout. And the city deploys that system here along, literally right down the road, to hold the floodwaters back. Back in the day, they used to build earthen berms, cover it with plastic and sandbags, and those didn't hold up very well in the big waters. So they switched to this HESCO barrier system, and it's done a fantastic job. In fact, in 2014, when we bought this building, we were in the midst of a flood, and I stood behind that 5-foot tall barrier, and if you could reach across the other side, you could dip your fingers in the water. That's how tall the water was. Wow. Right against where you were standing. And so we've lived with it, and it's been working fine until 2019. We had record flooding that year. The city should have done some things differently with that barrier system, and they didn't. And we were under threat of that barrier failing. It had been up for so long; they weren't designed to hold water back for a month, and it was a month and counting. The waters weren't going down, and there were weak spots forming in that barrier, and there was a massive amount of water pressure built up in the storm sewers and underground. And we had already closed the restaurant. This was on a Monday. We'd closed the restaurant, and we were manning pumps in our basement to keep the groundwater out. And fortunately, no one was around. The restaurant was empty. There were customers down here. I think the fire department came through on Monday and said, hey, probably not a good idea to have people in the building because we're worried about this wall. And I think on Tuesday, we continued to man the pumps. And my two partners and I had stepped outside, which this barrier was 30 feet from the front of our building. So we stepped outside out front of our building, standing behind the wall, and we're just shooting the breeze as we were doing the handoff to our young partner who was going to man the pumps overnight. And at that very moment, I watched the wall collapse.
Oh.
And it collapsed about 75 yards upriver from us, and we just stood there in awe. It just took a minute to register what just happened. And then we saw the wall of water heading towards us, and we ran 3 different directions. Our young partner ran into the basement of the restaurant, the worst possible place to run to, where he made 3 trips. He grabbed all of our cash, he grabbed our computers, our POS servers, and drug all that stuff up to his truck. And on the 3rd trip up, the water was cascading, pouring down the stairs as he made his way up those stairs with our computers. And then all we could do was sit and watch. And by the time it had settled, we had a 18 inches of water standing on the main floor of the restaurant, and of course 9 feet of basement filled with water below that. Now we had a full dining room, prep kitchen, and food storage in that basement. And it just happened in a matter of seconds. And there was nothing we could do except wait till the water receded and then begin the cleanup and rebuild process, which we did. So the pub and eatery was closed for 7 months in 2019. We finally opened up. I think we got back open in October or November of 2019. Most of the damage and rebuild was covered by flood insurance, which we all have to pay for down here. And our office building was affected and closed. We had 8 inches of water standing in our office building, which sits a little higher. Fortunately, the freight house, again, just 4 blocks west of where I'm sitting, the building sits up considerably higher. So the water never made it into the building at the freight house. So our crew was able to wade in waders and man the beer. We were able to maintain power down there and water, and we had 900 gallons of beer in tanks that had to be manned. Times 5, 4,500 gallons of beer in tanks that had to be manned. And we made it through.
Wow.
And then we recovered from the flood. And guess what happens in 2020? COVID.
Yeah.
So we've been getting hammered down here. And but you know what? COVID hit, restaurant closed, and the beer business just picked up. People who must have been at home drowning their sorrows because we were shipping beer by the semi-loads, and it hasn't slowed down. And of course, that's all changed in Iowa. The restaurants have opened back up, and we've more or less fully recovered back to normal business at the restaurant location, and the beer business has stayed at a staggering pace.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've seen. Seen a trend in the industry is beer or alcohol sales have done very well, and the fact that you guys were well positioned in the distribution business allowed you to take advantage of that onslaught of demand. And talk about diversification. Had you not had that, what would you have? You'd have been closed.
We'd have been in trouble. Financially, that would have been tough to swallow. It's funny. We went to the takeout model like everyone else did at the restaurant. So we had skeleton crew. It was literally just down to our manager and our chef. They would cook and deal with customers and run it out to their cars. And we sold beer by the half-gallon growlers. They were going out the door as fast as we could fill them. And we ordered, and we went through almost 3,000 growlers, basically until we couldn't order growlers anymore. Everybody ran out because everybody wised up and said, "Oh man, that's a way to get rid of all this beer." And so nearly 3,000 growlers during the COVID shutdown was just amazing how much beer we went through. When there's a will, there's a way. We've figured it out. So.
Yeah, and you had to adapt and just like everyone else. And and make changes. But again, thank goodness for the diversification you guys have kind of built into the business as the distribution piece has grown. You're brewing, you're distributing, you're retailing essentially in the restaurants and the tap house or tap room. It's a lot to kind of manage but again, thank goodness for it with all the tragedies and between the flood and COVID and everything else. The last few years have been really challenging.
Yeah,
sure not only for you, but for other folks down there on Front Street and in Davenport.
Everybody took it in the shorts after that flood, and then the COVID. Many businesses didn't recover at all. They've closed for good.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the 2019 flood, there's a plaque on the wall from the 1993 flood that marked the high water line inside the building, and we put another one up from the 2019 flood, and the 2019 flood was 3/4 of an inch higher than the 1993 flood. So two of the worst floods in history here, and the restaurant succumbed to it both times. So,
well, hopefully we're a long ways from the next one. That's all we can do is hope and pray on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and get more HESCO barriers.
I got a new plan now. We're excited about that. One thing the city has done is, they've myself and a number of other peers are part of the local, committee to discuss these future flood plans. And they've definitely been listening, and they've got some good plans. It's just unfortunately, these plans take time and money, and no one's prepared to do, to spend the kind of money that's necessary to do what they need to do. Yeah. And other rivers or other communities along the river here, built permanent flood walls and things like that. And Davenport chose not to do that, partly because the riverfront is very important to businesses downtown. It's why people come down here. They want to see that water, just like you said, a beer, a pier, and water, and that's what we've got. And it can be real pain when we're dealing with a flood situation, but in the big scheme of things, that happens so seldom. It's just not worth taking that all away. The floods can be devastating. I mean, there was hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damage here, and you just got to think of better ways to mitigate that moving forward, and that's what the city's doing now, I think. And there are a lot of naysayers that would rather have the city, or the feds come in and build a berm and protect the downtown. But those of us that earn our living down here don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 in a lot of instances. But hey, I just realized I was having such a good time listening to the story and all the different challenges that you faced so far that I just realized where our time's getting to. So I want to be respectful for you. I know you've got other commitments this morning, but one last question before we kind of roll out of this particular podcast, and I'm just kind of curious and I've been asking most of the restaurant owners we're talking to how you're handling the food cost issue, because of course we've got shortages, but we've also got significantly rising food prices. My question is, are you guys absorbing that? Are you passing it to customers? Are you finding money in other spots? Kind of how are you addressing that particular issue?
Well, I think we've held out as long as we can. We've done all the things you just said. We've absorbed it. We've found cost to cut in other areas, but we can't anymore. We're at the end of the rope, and I think the next step is we're going to have to increase the retail prices to the customer. And quite honestly, we've just been waiting for somebody else to do it first. And if that doesn't work, because we're already selling $12 cheeseburgers. I mean, what the hell can you do? I mean, we're things like fryer oil. It's doubled in price. French fries doubled in price. Chicken wings off the charts. I mean, tripled in price. Mm-hmm. You look at these things, and when you're talking about a food cost, normally a burger and fries, you maybe got 60 cents food cost in your fries. Well, now it's $1.20. Well, you got to make a 30% margin on. You got to have your food costs around 30%. or the model doesn't work. People think that there's, you got fat profits in the restaurant business, but I'm here to tell you, when a third of it goes to food costs and a third of it goes to employees, all you got left is a third to pay for all the overhead and try to eke a profit out of that. And we're not making a profit on the restaurant right now. We've been happy to only be losing a few $1,000s a month. Going into winter, that's going to be a problem. We're going to be in the potentially 20 to 30,000 a month losses in the wintertime. We always experience losses in the winter, but we can't continue to do it because we're absorbing the cost of overpriced food. Right. And if that doesn't work, then we're talking about a complete rehab of our pub model. We consider what we do upscale pub food. You can come in here and you can get we have a few entrees, a salmon entree and a chicken entree and fish tacos and fish and chips and things like that. But if I sit down and look at what we sell the most of, it's burgers and fries. And we may have to move to a more of a real bar food model where you're serving burgers out of paper baskets and tossing trash, and you don't have to pay a dishwasher. And between food and labor right now, it's tough to run a business. And the people I do have working for us, we're running them ragged, and that's not fair to them. So we got to figure something different out.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I guess the sweet spot, like you said, for prime costs is going to be around 60%, or preferably in the old days even better.
Yeah,
between 55 and 60, but I don't know that anyone's operating at 60 and below anymore.
I don't think so.
And so it really does make it difficult to find any net profit at the end of the month. And like you said, you're absorbing losses, and that can't go on forever. So hopefully things will change in the very near future. People will get back to work. Food prices will become more reasonable. And labor too, because labor rates are high too right now. So you got double whammies.
They are, and we're on this bi-state region, and Illinois is they've got this plan to be at a $15 minimum wage by 2020. I think it's 2024. So 3 more years, that minimum wage bumps to 15 an hour. Now that doesn't affect our servers, but it certainly affects our kitchen staff. Mm-hmm. And even the server wage, minimum wage is going to jump up to, I believe it's $9 an hour by that same time frame. So when you're talking about a server minimum wage in Iowa of $4 an hour, you double that in Illinois. Typical dishwasher in Iowa was making $8 to $10 an hour, and now the minimum is going to be 15 in Illinois. Well, one of two things is going to happen. Everybody who lives in Iowa is going to start working in Illinois, or those Illinois businesses are going to have to close because people won't be able to afford. Why would you? Literally, I can look out my window and I can see Illinois, and vice versa, they can see Iowa. So why would I spend $15 or $17 for a cheeseburger in Illinois if I can come across the river and do it for 10? So something's going to happen, and I don't know what yet. And it's a weird environment. Iowa has the Iowa governor has shut off the extra $300 a week unemployment, and we thought that would have sent people back out to the workplace, but it hasn't. And we're still, the applicants are still kind of the bottom of the barrel applicants, and they'll come to work and they'll work 1 or 2 days, and they'll walk out on a smoke break, and then you won't even see them. They're gone. Mm-hmm. They don't come back. And try to manage that from a scheduling perspective. The guy who we're relying on the grill back there just left after his smoke break.
Yeah, no matter how
much. Call him up and say, "Where'd you go?" It just wasn't for me. Well, that's not how this works.
Yeah, no amount of technology and scheduling software is going to help with that, is it?
No. That's why I think the big guys are getting into automation, and I don't know how a little guy does that. We can't afford to have robot hamburger flippers like McDonald's can, but it takes people to run these businesses, and we got to have people that want to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep hearing customers, people just don't have the patience or the sympathy. If you show up on a Friday evening and you want to eat, the last thing you want to hear is there's an hour wait, and you look around the room and see empty tables, and they say, "Oh, how the hell is that possible? You got empty tables." Well, it's not the tables, it's the kitchen. And then their response is, "Well, maybe you should pay your employees more." It's not a matter of money. I mean, we've got kitchen help that worked for us 3 or 4 years ago that earn $10 and $12 an hour, who we've offered $20 an hour to come work again, and they refuse. So it's not a matter of money.
It's a whole new ball game. I think that a lot of people have left the industry, the hospitality or food industry in terms of workforce, and of course those that haven't, are locked in place to wherever they are. That's treating them right already, and that's
right.
what you want. But there's just no excess capacity there for more workforce. I'm not sure what the solution is. Automation would be great, but like you said, a mom and pop business can't afford, a $50,000 computer system to flip a burger, as you said.
Right.
So what do we do? I don't know. I don't think we're going to answer it today here on the old Local Leaders podcast, but as soon as we come up with a good answer, we'll certainly share it with you. And we appreciate you, Tim, bringing your perspective and your broad background to the forefront here for us, and sharing your thoughts and ideas and stories, about the business. And again, we've been here today with Tim Baldwin from Front Street Brewery. Tim's a serial entrepreneur with multiple businesses that he and his partners are running today. And Front Street, though, is of course there in Davenport, Iowa. And if you haven't had the opportunity to go down and have some of those great beers, you need to get down there and try it. And I did make a note about the cherry. Is it the Cherry Blonde Bomb? Is that right? Cherry Bomb Blonde. I got it backwards. Cherry Bomb Blonde.
Yep.
That sounds like something that we need to get up here in the North Carolina area. We're gonna have to send those trucks a little further.
Right.
Well, I sincerely thank you, Tim, for being on today, and I've kept you a little longer than I meant to. But thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Any departing comments or words of wisdom that you wanted to get out?
No, I appreciate the time. Love sharing our story. Of course, we'd love to have you and any of your listeners stop in sometime and see what we can do. And just appreciate the time.
Well, you're very welcome. Again, you Chicago folks, or you Illinois folk, I should say, go across the river, spend some time in Iowa at the Front Street Brewery with the team, and enjoy some of that craft beer. You've got the tap room, you've got the brew pub. What's the website again, Dave?
www.frontstreetbrew.com. Frontstreetbrew.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome.
Not to be confused with our friends in North Carolina, also called Front Street Brewery.
Yeah, and I confused it the first time when we were looking it up. We were like, wait a minute. That's here down. That's in Wilmington, which does have, I believe, it's either River Street or Front Street. I can't remember which, but we're in Davenport, Iowa, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure you're in the right state when you go looking for Tim and his team. But thank you again, Tim. I'm going to wrap us up, and we appreciate you and all of our listeners to the Local Leaders Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll come back for our next episode. Thank you.